This club was started in 1952 by Virginia Nelson and Clara Gauchon. In 1969, Lee Fagala, who passed away a year ago, proposed a CARB Hall of Fame. All along, history books were maintained for every year, originally by Virginia Nelson. We were finally on track to complete Lee Fagala's dream in 1969. By December 31st, 2003, the club had a nomination form out with a closing date initially of January 1st, 2004. The date was extended to January 15th. That very night, we had 30 nominees, and the original selection committee of Vicki Davis, Diana Green, Scott Traylor, Jim Penny. Come on, Jim, you can stand up. And Dean Merriman met, and they determined the first 15 members of this Hall of Fame. The first Hall of Fame night was March 6th,
Luther
2000.
Brewer first attended Olympic Stadium in 1948. It was the main midget circuit that was running in the Heartland at that time. Some of the drivers were Judd Larson, Cecil Green, Mac McHenry, Don Honchell, Joe Walters, Vito Calea, and one of the McVeigh brothers. Luther would cross paths with most of these drivers during his career. He raced nearly every Sunday night during the 48 and 49 racing season. He also remembered in 1949 that Bill Holland running an exhibit race in his sprint car with one of the midgets. Holland had won the Indianapolis 500 a few weeks earlier. The area racing changed to full-bodied cars for the next season, and Luther's favorite was the number 38 Chevy from Lawrence, Kansas, powered by a GMC truck engine. It sounded a lot like the Offenhauser-powered midgets. He also remembered a black Ford Coupe sponsored by Shore Tire Company. Luther went into the military service before the next racing season started.
And they had to move out of it. We're gonna look.
Thank you very much, Luther Brewer. Luther just told me. John Lutheran was to Kansas City Auto Racing what Big Bill France was to NASCAR. For 25 years, John headed up the KCARA, which was the Kansas City Auto Racing Association. John was driving stock cars with success in the early 1950s when he realized the need to organize a race group and give racing some direction. He also had the foresight to get a set of rules so the drivers and car owners could race 2 or 3 nights a week and not have to travel far from home. Since most of the drivers were weekend warriors, they had jobs to go to the next day. In 1954, jalopy races were hot on the West Coast, and John saw that this would give a little guy a chance to go racing without hawking the home place to have a car. It quickly grew to 150 race cars on Saturday nights at Ed Young's Riverside Racetrack.
I like to think when they sit around and talk about some of the best times of their lives, they have to talk about the 25 years they raced at Riverside and Olympic. And when they talk about those days, they have to remember John.
In 1999, Jim was inducted into the California Racing Hall of Fame. And in 2002, he raced once again in Webster City, Iowa, in a vintage stock car built by Jim Cox, and he won the feature. Later in that year, he drove the same car at Osborne and was going for the lead late in the feature and crashed with the leader. This was Jim's final race. Throughout the years, Jim has been a racing historian while still helping others writing racing books, helping the CARB, Central Auto Racing Boosters Hall of Fame, and also helping children of departed racers with information about their fathers. Jim, you very much deserve this. Come on up here. Congratulations, Jim Penny. Our next inductee this evening, Mr. Ken Taylor. Kenneth Taylor started his racing career in 1953, and it didn't take long for Ken to find victory lane. In 1957, Ken won the first of an astounding 6 Central Missouri Racing Association championships. That's 1957, 58, 59, 62, 63, and 66, driving the Blackmore Douglas number 49 out of Slater, Missouri, in 5 of those 6 championships with the CMRA. During his career with the CMRA, Kenneth placed in the top 5, and he races and features 723 times. Our next inductee is from right here in Kansas City, Tiger Bob Williams. I've known Tiger Bob for a long time, so I'm just going to read what it says, Tiger Bob. As a nosy kid, Bob and his friends wanted to see what was going on at Olympic Stadium. They snuck in, got caught, and for his punishment, he started working there selling soda pop. His older brother, Ken, raced at Olympic, and soon after, Bob would make a go at it. Bob Burns owned a 1932 Ford Coupe, and Bob asked if he could drive it for him. Ken Stolfus, a good friend of Ken Williams, helped Bob get the car running, and this was the start of a great racing career for Tiger Bob. He was in the number 2. 1959 to 1964, Bob had success driving for Pappy Weld on and off, when not being fired, that is. This evening, our first Pioneer Award winner, Otto Haggart. Otto Haggart built and raced midget race cars from the 40s through the 50s this evening. Jimmy Campbell. Jimmy Campbell grew up in Bates City, Missouri, and lived there all of his life. Jimmy's family owned 1,380 acres of land since 1856 that his family continues to work. This is where the nickname the Flying Farmer originally came from. Our next inductee is Guy Mac McHenry. Guy Mac McHenry was born in Webb City, Missouri on February 6, 1918. He started out racing motorcycles and debuted the Chet Wilson Willys No. 5 midget in 1940. He would race various cars from Lincoln, Nebraska to Wichita, Kansas. Our next inductee is Jimmy Sams. For those of you who are on the internet all the time, you're always looking at the historic pictures. Jimmy Sams' name and his logo, the JSS, always pops up. Jimmy was born in the northeast part of Kansas City in 1903. He grew up with and became best friends with some of Kansas City's midget racing legends, such as Carl Badami, Vic Roth, Vito Collia, the Galatas, and the next inductee is Scotty Scoville. In 1949, Scotty Scoville hit the racing circuit driving for Killer Norton in the midget class. Scotty dabbled in a few other types of race cars, but nothing serious until getting into the midget. Also in 1949, he would form a partnership with Elmo Biggin and the number 12 V860. Scotty credited Biggin with teaching him more than any other car owner had ever done before. Our next inductee this evening is George Smith. George Smith was born on August 12, 1916 in Kansas City, Missouri, and lived here his whole life. George started out racing for car owner Joe Rossi in a Willys-powered Mite in St. Joseph, Missouri. He then drove for Art Berry in his V860 in 1941. He finished 9th in the Kansas City Midget Auto Racing Association points, but would also win the Tulsa Speedway title with 3 main event victories. In Kansas City's early part of auto racing, I'm talking like the 1930s, maybe 1940s, Olympic Stadium was, in some respects, known as kind of a rough neighborhood. And Dutch Miller, our next inductee, he's the guy who came forward to run the races there. Everybody says Dutch Miller or Sam DiStefano. Well, Sam DiStefano was Dutch Miller, one and the same. But there were businesses in Kansas City that would not do business with you if you were of Italian descent. So Sam realized that if he could get an English name, he went out with Dutch Miller, that he could grease a lot more palms, get a lot more people to come to the races, and it worked really well for him. Oliver Jennings, James Oliver, Ollie as he was known, was a descendant of the early settlers in Jackson County, Missouri, and Raytown area going back to the 1850s. His grandfather was Orlando Jennings, who was one of 3 blacksmiths in the area servicing wagon trains on the trail to the west. His dad was a stonemason and a farmer. As a student, Ollie loved science, math, and art. At an early age, Ollie developed an interest in how things were built and manufactured. Ollie's first love was his wife, Cassie. They met in Raytown and married in July of 1934. Ollie has 2 sons, Jim and Tom Jennings. Ollie's second love was anything with an engine or moving parts, steam engines, radios, combines, motorboats, but the race car was his passion.